Hello and welcome to Suzi's Book Bag, hosted by me, Suzifeay. I've gone for a very jazzy book bag here. This is a Books Are My Bag, explosion of colour and vibrancy. It seemed entirely appropriate for the author that I'm shortly going to welcome into the book bag. We are going to be talking to an author who is published by House of Zeus, Head of Zeus. They're part of Bloomsbury. I do have a Bloomsbury book bag, but I thought this would express the vibrancy, the colour, the character, the general amazingness of the person I'm about to invite in. It is the extraordinary Sally Gardner. Welcome, Sally.
Hello, what a wonderful introduction.
Do you like my book bag? It's rather good, isn't it?
I think it's fab. I love it. Love the explosion of colour. Perfect.
Exactly. And imagination, because you are a writer that I've followed for a long time. Usually through the YA angle, you've written children's books. Up to now, you have swerved into adult fiction. But I wanted to check about this because The Weather Woman, wonderful historical novel that you wrote a few years ago, was that your very first? I mean, I understand you also had a pseudonym.
I wrote under a pseudonym. I wrote under Ray Delaney, which I'm quite pleased I did. And one of the books I was very proud of, which was called Beauty of the Beast, but because it was a changeover from the Beast was the woman, and Beauty was the man, and then I wrote Snow Song under my own name, which was the first adult book I wrote under my own name. And after that, Weather Woman was under my own name, and so is, The Brightstone.
So I want to talk about your process, especially since you do write children's fiction and now adult fiction. Because did you always want to be a writer? Because you also had a completely different career to begin with.
Yes. I think I was born with a head full of stories. The only problem I had was that I couldn't write them down. So unlike other writers who could say, yes, at 5, I'd written my first story, I couldn't read till I was about 14. So I developed the ability to tell myself really rip-roaring stories. And my father loved walking. And we would go on very long walks. And after a bit, the story would just get more and more and more exciting because he was always talking politics to his wife. And I just was bored with it. And I would just get the story. And I loved getting to bits in story where I felt my heart going boom, 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 boom. Or I started crying or feeling really excited about something. And so I think in a way I really developed story. And very lucky, my mother took me a great deal to the theatre, and that's where I went in. I went into theatre at the beginning of my career. I became a theatre designer and a costume designer.
So nothing comes from nothing. What was the seedbed of these stories? Were you read to, or did you go and see movies as a child? Where did this imaginative faculty come from?
We weren't read to very often, I have to say, but we were read to. And mainly my stepmother was absolutely extraordinary reader. And the weirdest one, and it sounds very weird, we went with my father and my stepmother on their honeymoon.
That's quite nice.
My brother and me, I think when we were about 11, and he was pushing a cot, and it was in Germany, and my stepmother Joan decided to read Wind in the Willows to us, and it was one of the most amazing readings I've ever encountered. No one has read it better. And she read that picnic scene with all the things, it's written all in one do. She did it with one, no stopping, one thing. It was absolutely magical. And the other thing she used to read when I was much younger, totally inappropriate, because my mother loved A Straw Peter. And so we had all these rather grim books as well. But what I did love was they read fairy tale. They read Grimm's to me. And there was no worry about the fact I was little. It was just read as it was. And I loved that. I truly adored the fear that Grimm could give you, really make you worried at night and think about things. And I think that became my addiction to fairy tale.
Which comes across in so many of your books. I mean, I just cast around for the ones that I have. So we have I, Coriander. Now, was that your debut, I, Coriander?
It was. I, Coriander. I had a wonderful editor called Judith Elliott, who was, I mean, she's responsible for the Albergs, Postman, the Magical Postman books. She's responsible for so many incredible things. She had a real gift to find writers and illustrators. And I went into her as an illustrator, well, a bit of a writer illustrator, because I did a little book called The Little Nut Tree. And I don't think it's around anymore. And I remember her saying to me, "But you're a writer." And I said to her, "I'm severely dyslexic." And she said, "Well, does that matter?" And it was the most liberating thing anyone had ever said to me. It was in theatre, it did matter. People found it very, very funny, or they would laugh when you said, "Will you be 61 feet?" When I'd written it round the wrong way. And it was always a tin can. And funnily enough, when I got to Judith, it was a liberation. And I remember doing a book with her. It was a little book of princesses, which I was to illustrate. And she said, "Well, look, Sally, all you need to do is take out one word from a very old copy, and then you can claim it as your own." I thought, "I'm not doing that. That sounds terrible." So I went away and I was trying to write them. 3 months later, she said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm trying to write the stories. I want to ask the questions that I always wanted answering. Like, why was Cinderella's father so hopeless? And all these questions." So she said, "Well, you better come in." And so I showed her what I'd written. And she really gave me 3 master classes in writing, which I've never forgotten. And that really was the liberation. She said to me, "Short sentences. If you can't spell a word, think about using it. And if you are going to use a complicated word, give it 3 times. Take a child very fast through something. Show them quick, show them quick, show them quick. Older, slow down." And it always stayed with me, that. And so I have this image of myself when I write for very little children of taking their little paws and running very fast through a sort of like a shopping mall and going, "Oh, look at that. No, look at this. Ooh, up, that, ooh, up," and then getting them through so you don't lose them in any way on the journey. And I had done a lot of books for her called Magical Children, because I was very aware of children like me who were given Janet and John or very dull reading books. And I wanted to do very simple, but with a good story. So I did The Strongest Girl in the World, The Smallest Girl, all the rest of them. And they're still around. And they're quite old fashioned now, really, but they're still there. And somewhat slightly inappropriate, because there's the fat fairy in one of them, which I'm sure would not be allowed today. Anyway, and then I remember Judith said to me, "Well, you can't go on like this. You've got to do something big." And she announced at a sort of publishing party, she was a sort of teetotaler, and she drank a whole bottle of champagne thinking it was lemonade. I don't quite know how she managed it, but she was very, very drunk. And she went down, and in front of Ian Rankin and several other people who ran Orion at that time, she said, "Well, Sally is going to write a novel." I remember thinking, "Oh, please may the floorboards just open now and I die." And in the morning, I went to see her and I said, "You all right?" She said, and I tiptoed out of the room, and she said very loudly, "Sally." I said, "Yes." "You are going to write the novel." And I thought, "Oh, heck." And then it was really a bit of magic. Actually, it was, I think, a true bit of magic. I know exactly where I was. I was in Soho Square, going down to Greek Street, when it came to me, this little girl standing on a wooden staircase, and I knew the glass was bottle And I knew it was raining, and the glass would go do, 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 do. And the little girl was really frightened. And she'd had a nightmare. And I knew she was walking down the stairs. There was a grand staircase and this big door. She opened it to see a man at a desk with his head in his hands. And in front of him was a box with light coming out of it. And the little girl goes up to the man and he slams the box shut. And he says, "You haven't seen a thing." And I thought, what has she seen? What has she seen? Who is this little girl? And who is this man? And that became Coriander Hobie.
I mean, the other thing in Coriander that I remember is the silver shoes.
Yeah.
I mean, that must have been an extraordinary stepping off point. So you just mentioned earlier on about the questions you wanted to ask. And they're sort of encoded in the stories, really, aren't they? Because where have these shoes come from? Why is the mother so kind of frightened of these shoes? What, you know? And when you come up with something like that, do you know yourself what it means, or do you have to find out by
No, I don't
purpose
plot.
of writing the story?
I don't plot. I really should. The thing about everyone tells me to plot. Sally, life would be so much easier if you just plotted. But the thing about writing, I find, is that a character, if you really got this character, it will start going off on its own way, and it will tell you what the shoes are for. It will say. And as I began to write that, I knew that she had come from a different world, and I knew the shoes were evil. They were not good shoes. And that from that one image, I can wind a whole thing. I can get it. But often I'm quite blind to where I'm going. And then people go, "That's remarkable that you got." I think, ooh. I did it, I did get there, but it's a slight fluke. But it's also, I think, going deep into something, into a character, and let the character tell you what they want to do.
I mean, the other thing about not plotting, and it's very interesting contrasting the plotters with the not plotters. Do you have to do a bit of unpicking? I mean, do you find that, oh God, I've gone down a bit of a...
Are we talking about knitting? It's all on the floor, darling. It's all on the floor. Miles of wool. I'll knit, or undo the whole thing. Start again. So I write. What I like to think about my writing is I start off on a day like an aeroplane, going choo, 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 and try and get in the air. And then when I've got high enough, I stop. I come down. And then I leave it, and then I come back to it. And then really it's knitting. It's like one, do. And I knit and knit and knit, and then I work back into it, and I work back into it, and I work back into it until I can go forward. So I'm not one of these people who can just do a rough book and then I knit as I go along. I stitch as I go along.
What fantastic images. One, the aeroplane, and the other, the knitting.
Yeah.
And put it all together and you get these amazing books. I just wanted to, I found this as well. Now, this is one of my very, 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 very favourites. I think this is a masterpiece.
Thank you.
And so this is taking and weaving and knitting and taking off and all those things from Hans Christian Andersen.
Yes.
And actually, I do know the work of Hans Christian Andersen, but I remember reading this and only about halfway through going, oh, it's from the tinderbox. I mean, you just made it your own. And also it is beautifully illustrated. This is
it's
fabulous
stunning. The whole story of that book was amazing because I had started writing it and I knew it was going to be illustrated. And David Roberts came for tea. And he... I said, would you like to hear what I'm writing? And he went, yeah. And we rather hoped he might illustrate, but we weren't sure. And he listened to it and he went, I'm going to stop everything. This is the book I want to do. This is what I want to do. And I was just heartbroken he didn't win the Kate Greenaway. We were up for the Carnegie, and I really thought he should have won. I really thought he should have won. And they were stunning drawings. And that cover took absolutely ages for him to get it right. And it's one of the best covers I think I've ever had. It is a stunning cover. But the whole thing about this story is, again, I have to thank Judith, because I wanted to use this story when I'd started writing. And she said to me wisely, wait until you're better. Wait till you know what you really want to do with this. And it is a beloved story. In Denmark, I've had to go on podcasts to explain why I used it. But the story is not, it couldn't be used now for children because it's totally amoral. And that's why I loved it when I was young. I mean, the soldier finds all the money, kills the witch, gets all the gold and the money, lives a life of Riley, loses all his friends, strikes a match, finds he can get all the gold back, gets the princess. What he does with the princess, we won't say, but we think we know. And then she goes home, and finally he's rested and he manages to get free, and he kills the king and the queen, and he marries the princess. What's not to love? What's not to love? And as a child, I just thought, justice all the way through, just justice.
Well, I suppose that's another example of the character sort of taking you through it. And I can't remember if I read, I mean, often fairy tales, their power is in the not explaining.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, like the princess does this, and the shepherd boy, the goose girl does something else, and a horse does something. And in a way, the power is the not explaining, really. Yeah. I mean, I think because, the structures then leave so much room for you to think about. Think about all sorts of issues.
The end of the Tinderbox was, I got the end. Phew, I was so relieved to get the end, because like, how are you going to end this, girl? And when I got it, it was like, oh yes, oh yes. And also, I was really lucky to come up with the period that I came up with, which was the 30-Year War. I knew nothing about it, and I went and saw a wonderful historian who incredibly helped me to sort of put it into the context of the 30-Year War. And I am addicted to periods of time where mankind goes mad, really. And the 30-Year War was one of the most extraordinary events. I mean, over 3 million people died in it. When you think of a population of Germany was almost annihilated by it. That's over 30 years. And when Goebbels, Goering, surrendered at the end of the Second World War, he said, I'm surrendering because I do not want a 30-year war. And the English had to go to the Encyclopedia Britannica to look up what the 30-year war was. And that really illustrates to me the tragedy of what's happening at the moment. We are not teaching enough history, because in my estimation, if you don't understand the 30-Year War, you will never understand what Napoleon got up to. And if you don't understand what Napoleon got up to, you'll never understand the First World War, and then you'll never get the second. So it all starts with one of the first, if you want to say it, almost world war, which was the 30-Year War.
Yes, it made me think I need to learn more about that myself. We'll go on to your latest book. That's the one I mainly want to talk about, this beautiful, beautiful hardback, The Bride Stone.
It's stunning.
And this is a period I loved so much about the book. It is an intensely romantic love story. It is a find the lady story, a solve the mystery story. There are, good versus evil. There are thrilling chases. It's got the lot, really. But what's really interesting about this, I mean, I love the French Revolution. And again, the thing about loving the French Revolution, it's also a period of absolute horror. That's unbelievable horror and terror. So to even say I love the French Revolution is a very strange thing to come up
No,
with. And this,
no, it isn't. It isn't a strange thing, because in a way, it is still something we're coming to terms with. I mean, if you think, it is the most revolutionary thoughts ever came up. Women to have their own independence, women to be free to marry who they wanted, women to keep their property. It doesn't even exist today. In several, it was so advanced. And then the next day they threw it all out. But anyway, whatever. But it was there. And I'm riveted by it. I am absolutely riveted. I'm riveted by how quickly we can descend into barbarity as a species. It's horrendous.
And also from the very highest heights of culture. Obviously, Ancien regime culture was only for the aristocrats, but a world of beauty, of charm, of elegance, of music, dancing, all of this, and then a few years later, total bloodbath, horror. It's a story that's got everything, really, isn't it? So your characters, I thought this was a very interesting modern touch. You talk about small boats bringing people over from Europe. I mean, and obviously that's a very deliberate allusion on your part.
Yes. Well, it's true. It's taken absolutely from history. I haven't made any of it up. So what we did, we had traffickers, just as we have now, and we would take the French desperate people over, and then in the middle of the channel we would say, don't know, there's a French boat coming, I don't know, I think we might hand you back, or you give us more money. And a lot of people ended dead in the sea, and a lot paid a lot extra for the journey. And we were pretty barbaric, and we had the same things. We'll come over, they'll take our jobs, they'll marry our women, take our houses, exactly the same cry. And the answer that was given is what I've used for one of the characters, who said, do you think we really want to be here? We do not speak your language. You do not have our religion. You do not have our sense of humor. Do you not think if we couldn't go home tomorrow, we wouldn't go home? And I think about those people who's walked from Syria, Christmas trees, to walk that far. And what we do is we go home. I mean, you have to be desperate to do jobs like to go that walk. Yeah. And it was the first time really in England, the Prince Regent started a charity for the emigres, because up to that point, and he only started it because he was in Brighton, and he heard this terrible story about these naked women on the beach, and he couldn't think why were they on the beach naked? And they were nuns, and they had been stripped of all their clothing, and they'd had to swim.
So these are people like our hero, we'll get on to him, who are escaping pretty much the guillotine, certain death if they remain in France, and they've already lost everything. They've already been, stripped of homes and possessions and all of this. So let's get on to Duval, because he's a very interesting character. He's the central male character who has a terrible conundrum, a terrible problem that he has to fix when he finally gets back to England, which is his home. But in his character, he's quite withdrawn and withholding. And when we read the book, we don't really get him to begin with. Do you know what I mean? He sort of disappears.
He's very damaged. He's very
incredibly damaged. And just explain what has happened before the book opened.
He was very brave in the September massacres, which a lot of people were. So it was about 115 killers that went round and slaughtered thousands of people. The death toll is not known on this one. But a few very brave men, and some women, but mainly men, followed them, sort of pretending to be with them, but actually getting people out, getting and saving people from the massacres. And he has been arrested after he got arrested in the Terror, and with his friend, and they were sent to first to the Conciergerie and then to La Force, two of the worst prisons, horrendous prisons. But he, being discovered to be English, is kept as a political prisoner. So the film Napoleon has all the prisons open and everyone running out, which is not true. And they kept, so Duval would have been kept as a prisoner, a political prisoner, a pawn to be used as a, and he's only freed in 17. He's freed in 75. It takes him nearly a year to get back because it was hell getting out of France.
And what has happened to him in prison is that he has constantly, almost felt the blade of the guillotine over him daily, and has seen people be taken out.
All his friends.
All his friends.
All his lovers, because there were lots of affairs in those prisons. And he's watched his best friend, who was a painter, die. And a lot of this I've taken from real, I feel rather passionate about it because real people, real stories of what happened in that. And the living with the guillotine made people laugh at death. What can you do? It was so utterly barbaric. And I wanted to sort of get that across, but a bit like a fairy tale. I didn't want to lam it on you, hit you over the head with a mallet. And both characters, Ed May as well, have been utterly involved in it, both from different angles.
Mm-hmm. I'm reminded of the story of Mary Wollstonecraft, who was in Paris during the Terror, and there was a story of her walking along and slipping on blood near the guillotine and crying out in horror, and people went shush 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 shush, come away, shh. Like, you're not allowed to express the horror of living.
There was a little maid, she was a shop assistant, and she was on the left bank, very near where the most slaughter on the church was happening, the prison was happening. And she had a hat to deliver to a customer. And she's walking along, and it's a river of blood going down to the bank, the Seine. And a cart comes along with all the bits of human bodies hanging off. And she says, I was just worried that I didn't get any blood on the hat. And that just got me. I don't know about you, but that really got my gut to think that people just live normal lives while all this butchery was going on.
So Duval does make it back. He is, as he discovers, he is Lord Harlington because his father has died. Nobody knew he was even alive. He was just so in the depths of imprisonment that
no one would
know what had
the
happened
names
to him.
And also they burnt a lot of stuff about names. They got rid of names. Not all the names are known. No.
Yeah. So he is the new Lord Harlington, but this has come with a bit of a problem that he has got to solve. And I don't want to go through the whole plot. There are sort of there's a legal conundrum that he finds himself in. And I wanted to ask you a bit about the sale of wives, because this is part of the story. And I gather this sounds really bizarre, but I gather this is not a made-up thing. This is something you discovered.
No.
Sell your wife.
You could. Well, this is, you see, the Mayor of Casterbridge had a wife sale. And I always thought I always thought that was sort of, oh, well, maybe he's done it and I can't do it because it's been done. And then I then sort of looked up wife sale. I thought, oh my God. Oh my God, I've just hit gold dust. And it started really in the 17th century. And basically, you couldn't divorce your wife because it was so expensive. So it would be about £1 million in today's money to try and divorce your wife, meaning it was impossible. And you had to get an act of parliament and everything else. So if, as somebody said rather brilliantly, if the law is an ass, we know where to put the ass's tail. And so wife sales. And then I got really worried that they wouldn't ever bring a widow. Why would a widow go? And of course, the widow was the property of the son. So he was legally allowed, I mean, in sort of the sense that she was chattel. And wives were chattel. And this is the main thing to cling on to. No more than a cow, sheep, or anything else a man might own. A wife was chattel. So she had to be willing. And what you did is you either put a chain round her neck or a leather strap or a scarf, if you were kinder, and you led her to market. And these were illegal, and they would take place on market days, or they took place in hotels, and they were very much like a circus. So people would go, sort of roll up, and they knew about wife sales, and some worked and some didn't. And then there were sort of bits where after your wife was sold, the husband and the new man had to go out and have a meal, and a lot of drinking had to happen. And then it was decided that if she was with child, the child would be his, or if she had children, he would decide whether he wanted to keep them or hand them all over. And that's how it went. It was brutal.
It's the most extraordinary story, but also bringing in your previous novel, The Weather Woman. I mean, you're focusing on women and kind of injustice, historical injustice. And certainly in The Weather Woman, again, it's dangerous to have knowledge. Actually, also in I Coriander, women, I suppose, because they are beasts, because they are chattel, basically, aren't meant to know too much or learn too much, or have they're not seen as having an intellectual equipment in the same way. And there's a lot of peril, isn't there, for these women who don't conform?
Well, there's a lot of peril for clever women. I think throughout history, there's been a clever woman is in trouble. Best to be a stupid woman, really, if you wanted to survive. I mean, clever women did survive. They did find ways around it. But boy, to be born poor and to be born clever, God knows what would happen to you. It's very, very difficult. I do feel that women, we are so lucky to be in the situation we're in at the moment, and still there's bits to it that are deeply unfair for women. And I feel that I do feel that about history as well, that we are often unseen. I mean, for a woman in the period of time I'm writing about, in the marriage market, really, she had one season in the sun. And if she didn't get married in that season, her second season was like a bit difficult. Third season, she was almost out of the game. And even if she had a glorious first season, she could well be, the husband could just put her in a house at the bottom of the yard, basically, or not bother with her at all, or send her to a madhouse. But really, that was her life. That was her moment of glory, a moment of being seen. The rest was not important.
So the two novels, this is kind of the 1790s.
Yes.
And I think Weather Woman, that's a bit later, isn't it? That's the Regency. Is that sort of 1830 or something like that?
It goes up to 1814. So, is that right? Yes, it's a bit later. It is a bit later.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So what I wanted to ask, I wondered whether you had a background in costume design, and you do describe people's clothes. And I wondered whether, as much as anything, you like the clothes of the period.
I just love that period. If I could go back just for a day, I'd love it. I want to go back and just see it. Well, I actually, Georgette Hare, don't, you know, she describes costume as well. And I think it's quite important. I think what people have got on is important to know. You know, it makes the image of them stronger. I mean, Edme is a sweet little figure. And I take it from real costumes that I obviously have seen. And I love thinking about what they would look like and how stunning she would be. So I do describe costume, yes.
There is this almost naked fashion, and we've seen it in cartoons by Gilroy, people of the time, where, well, I mean, actually, the other thing I was thinking is that you reverse the famous Colin Firth Pride and Prejudice rising from the lake with the clothes clinging. There's a kind of, you know, wet muslin gown effect for Edme, isn't there? That
there is. Yes.
Duval finds quite enticing. But yeah, the fashions, they could be very low cut. For women, they could be very, very clingy. They could be almost see-through.
They were almost see-through. By the time 1814 arrives, they're almost see-through. The thing about this, and it came about through women being in prison, like Marie Antoinette and her friend and Josephine. Josephine was made to walk around naked in the prison for the entertainment of the guards. So when they got out, to be quite rude about it, they thought, fuck it. I don't care. Let it be on display. That's what you want to see, mate. You've got it. And it was such a so brave. And there's a wonderful man going to the Paris Opera, and he said, my word, yeah, all the women were near naked. Yes, because muslins were so see-through. But it was, in a way, a sort of, you know, up you for making us, degrading us so much. So this is how this fashion came about. Yeah.
There's something very poignant about Josephine. I read Kate Williams's biography, fascinating book. And of course, she had ill health all her life, really, from what she had suffered when she was in prison. Yeah, she was, you know, and came out fighting.
Yeah, she was an incredibly brave woman. Yeah.
And then she fell in with Napoleon.
She also spent more than Marie Antoinette on clothes, by the way.
Now, this is the most amazing thing. This is the thing that, like, yeah, we've got rid of a king and we've got rid of his fancy schmancy wife, and now we have an emperor and an even fancier schmancier wife. But Josephine obviously had this I'm doing it for you, I am one of you kind of vibe. Do you think? You know,
no, I think she
no.
I don't think she gave a monkey's. I think she you know, why not? She'd had nothing. She'd been in prison. She'd been degraded to the level.
Her first husband was guillotined.
Yeah. So I think she just thought, I'm going to take everything I can.
Right.
I don't care. And she spent far more than Marie Antoinette. And Marie Antoinette's always looked on this wastrel who had problems with candles. I mean, I find it so sad. I mean, she's got such a bad press. And she was clever. In the end, she woke up and became very, very smart when she was put on trial.
Oh, yes, she was pretty magnificent in the, you know. Yes, I mean, there's the story of Napoleon, probably from Kate's book as well, sort of saying to Josephine, I don't want to see you in the same dress twice. You know, wear a new dress every day. So I'm sure the dressmakers must have absolutely loved her. The jewelers, the hat makers,
everybody.
You know, but it is really extraordinary. It is one of the strangest switch arounds in history, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
I do find it very strange. Now, if you were going to go back to the Regency period, is there anybody you'd particularly like to meet?
Oh, wow, that's a fabulous question.
You see, I think Lord Byron, because you'd sort of think, like, everybody was wowed by him. It would be very interesting to hang around with Lord Byron and get the effect for yourself. But
I don't know if I would want to see Lord Byron. I'm not a great lover of that man. I'm trying to think who I would like to see. God, there's so many of them.
Maybe go to a ball or something and check out the dresses.
Yeah, I'd love to meet Wellington.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah,
I would be fascinated to meet Wellington. He grew up where I live now in Hastings, and I would really. I mean, he was. I was reading a lot about the Battle of Waterloo. He was such a clever man, and how he beat Napoleon was just genius, really, utter genius. So I'd like to meet him. Yeah.
he had an extraordinary kind of afterlife as well as Warden of the Cinque Ports.
Yes.
And if you go, is it Walmer Castle that was his residence? I think there's a lot of there's a lot of memorabilia, and then of course there's Apsley House, which I haven't been to for years. I should go to Apsley House again.
Where's Apsley House? Where is that?
I think it's called Number 1 London, and
oh yes, it is. Yes.
It's right at the bottom of Hyde Park.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes, I know the one you're talking about. Well, he built the square very near where I live called Wellington Square, which he did after the Battle of Waterloo. I love the idea. He came and sort of oversaw a square. I think that's what.
It's got all, from what I remember, I mean, I haven't been for years, but it's got booty from Waterloo, and it's got booty from Napoleon, who kind of fled. And I think there's some kind of extraordinary canteen of cutlery that Napoleon took on. Yeah. he took on campaigns with him. You know, there's no need to let your standards drop just because you're on campaign.
No, absolutely not. No, no, completely not. No.
Well, I mean, it would be terrifying, but I do think it would be interesting to stalk the streets of revolutionary Paris, as long as you had your cockade firmly in your hat.
You weren't wearing red shoes or red heel.
Oh yes, that's a good detail, isn't it? That's a very good detail, and that
red heel was the killer. And there's many stories of people who'd picked shoes up and thought, "Oh yes, I've got a pair of shoes," and it was a red heel, and that was the end of them, because it was a sign of aristocracy.
Right. I mean,
and I use that in the book.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so the other. This is quite a complicated story. It's got various different elements to it. Like I say, the thrill of the chase. You have a detective in it. It is a love story. And is this another example of not plotting? Do you kind of think, well, I know who Duval is and I know who Edma is, and let's just see.
I wrote 4 versions of this book before I got to the one I wanted. And I sort of always knew I wanted this man to come back. I'm very good at beginnings. I always know my beginnings very, very well. I know the next beginning for the next one I know my beginnings. But what I don't know is where quite the beginnings are going to go. And I knew he had to find a wife. And then this became the wife's tale. And then I realized I hadn't really made them fall in love before I sort of got into, whatever happens. I don't want to give everything away. And so I had to go back and really rewrite him again before I got him. And I often, with my characters, it sounds really bonkers, but it is true. I take them out for dinner and I go to a nice restaurant. I go somewhere nice and I sit down with them and I say, how do you think it's going? Do you like where you're going? How are you feeling? And Duval just went, "You haven't got me." What? I've been writing you for ages. Of course I've got you. No, you haven't got me. You haven't really thought about trauma enough. And they do these things. They really do these things. And then I lost my editor in this book because Rosie de Courcy retired. And that's usually an absolute disaster. To be honest, it's a mega disaster. A book can go bloop. And it then went and sat dormant for 6 months. And the wonderful Sophie Whitehead came on board and literally just went and sort of beat it into shape. And I think a lot with writing is a lot of us get hooked on going slow. Oh, it's so exciting. That detail is so wonderful. We could really go on about the wife's sale for about 15. You've got to keep the pace going. You've got to give enough and not drown. And that, I think, is really very important. And the book then began to actually maneuver. And he came out of his dressing room and went, I am ready to go. And he went. Duval came alive. Edme also came alive as well. And the minute I got her diaries, I sort of knew where she was going. And I started doing this with love letters between them. They had masses of love letters that I wrote between them. And they felt so stiff and awkward. And I thought, I was never good at writing love letters. What the fuck am I doing here? So I gave up on that. And the minute I gave up and just put it in the diary, it really began to come alive. And the fact that he doesn't write to her became more poignant than if he had written to her.
Well, he does that extraordinary thing, slight touch of toxic masculinity, where he says, you intrigue me, and then he disappears. So again, this is this sort of wonderful relationship.
At the very end, he does realize. I mean, the thing about Duval is he's an incredibly sensitive man. He's had a terrible childhood. I mean, really terrible childhood with a vile man who's known as the Viper, and I really feel for him as a character, and I feel I've been honest to where he's ended up. You know what I mean? I feel he's a gentle soul who has been brutalized and finally finds someone who really, truly understands what that means.
Mm-hmm.
And that's rare.
When you go for these dinners, do you literally sit opposite a chair which has the shadowy figure, and you're sort of eating away and like, tell me about yourself?
I take a pen and paper just in case they say something interesting. But often, I mean, I've taken Edme out. I took Duval out. I don't think I took any of the other one. Oh, Quinn. I once took Quinn out. But
he's interesting.
He was. I loved Quinn, but Quinn came very quickly and very easily, and then he told me about the house he grew up in and the walls, and I thought, oh, that's really interesting. I hadn't thought about that. So and it sounds mad, but you are making something in your head. You really are. If you write character well, you're building it, and you really got to think about all of it in a 3D way. I hope I've done that for them. I really do, because I feel there's so many Duvals and Edmes still out there in the world.
Well, I would say whatever works. Do you know what I mean? If it could be, I don't know, tarot cards or table wrapping, or
Well, I'm going to start doing that. Tarot cards, help me.
Anything that kind of, because it's about the subconscious, isn't it? It's finding some kind of direct route into the subconscious that solves a lot of these.
And also, the other thing is you can't be untrue to the period. We know. I mean, I'm an old biddy, but I remember growing up, people did not talk about their emotions. After the Second World War, it'd be like, no need to say that. No need. Let's have a sherry. And no one talked. People did not talk. It was embarrassing to say anything about what you felt inside. And you have to go back to, at least it's true to Duval, because he would have spoken. He would have said, because the French Revolution loosened a lot of that, because he was writing last letters to people and all the rest of that. But you have to be, when you look at Darcy and Lizzie, they hardly really say anything about them. It's very limited, and I feel to do a gushing, modern take on, I suffered so much, I'm in trauma, I got totally you can't do that. So he has to be reserved, he has to hold it back. He can't let it go.
I mean, Darcy, it has to be absolutely pulled from him, and
Yes.
his declaration of love is so awkward that she just sort of, shut up, go away. She doesn't even accept it. It's so ham-fisted because he just can't talk like that.
I was doing some research onto how much £10,000 was, and I, you may be wrong, but in the estimations of modern day, it was about 17 million. So I had a lot more sympathy for the mother. I did. I never liked her before, but I thought, Christmas trees, you're turning that away. I mean, it means, the other one had a lot of money as well, but it is a hell of a lot of money to sort of turn away. That's why you could have that huge house.
Yes. Do you ever take out characters for dinner that you don't really like very much, but you sort of
I do. I took out Kalioski when I wrote The Red Necklace. I took him out. I love taking him out. He was such a shit. He was so grim. And he had a dog. And I said, well, what about the dog? Dog's coming with me. I thought, oh, no, that's awful. Anyway, I loved him. I really did love doing him. So, yeah, I did. Sido, I took out. But I feel when I look back at Sido, I wish I could have given her a bit more balls. But she was in such a pickle with that father again. It was difficult. It was difficult, that one. To be true to that period.
That's Revolution again, isn't it?
Yeah.
I thought so. Well, I mean, I just think that's such a fabulous idea. I just love that idea. I mean, when do you go to the same restaurant, or is it a restaurant you think they'd like?
I have one in St Leonard's that I go to called Grays on the Grand, which they know me very well. And I sit right there, and I often have a glass of pink bubbly, naughty, and I look at the sea, and if it's empty, I find my characters have walked in and sat down and have a chat with them. Sometimes we go to quite nice places, and I ask for a table, for two and alone. It's what the hell does it matter? The main thing is you get your writing. I also find walking very helpful with my stories. So I think it's about 1,000 steps, isn't it? And then suddenly your brain starts to go, oh, I've got it. Yeah.
Gosh. I've seen pictures of you with a little dog.
Oh, it's my sparrow.
Yes. Your sparrow is accompanying you on these walks.
Yes, she's my teacup Yorkie.
Oh.
She was a rescue, and unfortunately, she had to have an eye taken out, and she nearly died twice. And she is it's taken years to get her to be a brave little fighter. She's now a real trooper, and I love her to absolute pieces. And I call her my one-eyed wonder. And we go out, we get asked all the time, oh, what a lovely dog, sweet dog. Oh, she's only got one eye. As if I might not know. So I say things like, yeah, no, the other one's in a jar at home. I just didn't put it in this morning.
Oh, well, she sounds like a lovely companion on these walks.
She's not here today. She's gone off to have a play date with all her mates. She has a huge social life.
Perfect. Okay. Right. Well, that about wraps it up for me. We have been talking about your latest novel, The Bride's Stone, full of mystery, thrills, excitement, and romance, as I've said. So I'll now go on to my 3 questions about which you have been ruminating. So I know this has been a hard one, I know, but favourite artwork?
So it's going to be The Grand Canyon by David Hockney.
Oh, is there a story behind that?
I went with my stepfather very early in the morning to the Royal Academy when it was on show. We went, I think we got there 9:15, and the doors were open, and you went on a little, it was so big, it's 60 paintings, it's huge. And we stood on a little, you walked up and stood on a box platform, and we just stood there in absolute silence, nobody there. And I wept. I thought it was so beautiful, utterly magical painting. And I just stood there with tears just rolling down my face. I thought, wow. So that stayed with me. I love paintings, but it was a very difficult one to ask because I could go through many, but I thought, well, this one should have some meaning, and it really does, that one.
I wonder where it is. I wonder where it went. Sounds absolutely enormous then.
It is stunning. You look it up online and it is nothing. It looks like, really? Why? And when you see it, I mean, it has the same effect as Matisse, who's my other great love. I love Matisse. And I think Hockney, his understanding of color, his understanding of shape, and also his understanding of story. And you may think that's bonkers because there's not one figure in it, but it is a story. And he has that ability in paint to take you into another world, to open a door into something else, so that when you come out, you see London in a different light. And that, I think, is magical.
And he's endlessly creative. I mean, there's no signs of him slowing down or stopping. Absolutely incredible. And I totally agree with you. There are certain artworks you have to stand in front of. So, for example, Pollock, if you stand in front of a Pollock, it's so different from seeing it on a screen or seeing a reproduction. The life and the energy and the excitement is mind-blowing.
And I think I remember seeing Matisse's paperworks, which I simply adore, which he did at the end of his life. And there's a wonderful story about that. He was very, very ill. And in the war, his daughter and him went they took a train. There were people being bombed all over the place to have an operation. He said to his doctor, if you give me 2 years more life, I will give you a painting every year. He got 5 paintings. 5 Matisses.
Wonderful. What a great man, doctor and painter. Yeah. Incredible. So, Book of Shame.
Book of Shame. Oh dear. Mockingbird.
Really? Now, why have
read it?
I mean, to go back to dyslexia, is it hard to read? Has it hampered your reading?
In my life, I have trouble with reading. I can read. I mean, I do obviously read a hell of a lot, but I find the words tend to go do like a loop. And when I'm tired, they just go. So reading is exhausting. If the words all stay still, it's not so troublesome. But when I'm tired, they tend to go on a little journey. And I could have listened to it. I did so much learning through my ears, and I have to thank the Library for the Blind for that, because they see us dyslexic people, bless their cotton socks, as belonging to them, because it used to be called word blind. And
yes, of course, yeah.
And so we can use them, and they have things which I love called straight reading. I'm a very great advocate for straight reading. And I would like just to give one huge shout out for the reading of Bridestone. It's read by Oliver Dimsdale, and it is absolutely beautiful. It is the most extraordinarily beautiful reading. I am so thrilled with it. He does it sexy, he does it quietly, and he doesn't do huge it's just lovely. It is beautifully read. Yeah.
Well done, Oliver. Yes. Yeah. Perfect. So why does Mockingbird fill you with shame? Is it because it's just, I mean, a lot of people read it in their teens. It's like,
Yeah,
I don't know
exactly.
whether they do now, but
I didn't read it. I didn't read, and I feel it's one of those books you should have read. You know, you should have read. I mean, I've read Truman, and I haven't read other bits all around it, but I never read To Kill a Mockingbird. So there we are. That is my book of shame. I feel I should have read it. I should, you know, she's writing in the sort of era that, you know, YA. It's one I sort of feel I should have mastered and done, and I haven't.
Well, it's still there waiting. That's the great thing about all these books of shame. They wait patiently.
I know.
It's still there. And finally, funniest, most bizarre feedback on any aspect of your work.
Can I give two very funny ones? Is that allowed?
You
So
absolutely
I
can.
worked in theatre, and I worked at the National, and I was at a party with Sir Peter Hall, and I said to him, "Oh, I worked at the National." And he went, I'm sorry, I don't remember your face at all. Who are you? And I said, well, I'm Sally Gardner. He said, Sally Gardner? Well, God, I know that name. I know that name. He turned to his wife and said, why do I know the name Sally Gardner? And she said, because you read her every night to your daughter.
That's fabulous.
And then the other one is a bit sadder, but it happened. I worked with a designer called John Gunter, and unfortunately he died. And at his funeral, Sir Richard Eyre was there. And in my youth, I'd known him, and I suppose I was perceived as not being the brightest spark in the planet, which is all right. I was doing costume, and he came up to me and he said, so what are you doing these days, Sally? I said, well, I'm writing. I write. What name do you write under? I said, well, I write under the name Sally Gardner. He said, you can't do that. I said, why? He said, well, there is a very Sally Gardner. She's very well known. She's written Maggot Moon. She's quite famous, you know. I said, that's me. And he went, what? I love that story. It was just the best moment. What? You?
Do you think there's something there about people putting you in a box and you're in that box and it's very hard to see that there's any more to you?
Definitely. You know, costume designer, and the fact that I was far more than that. I used to give directors a lot of ideas. No. You know, put you back in the box with, you know, you did the washing up, really. You weren't in the kitchen. Yeah.
Those are absolutely wonderful stories. Well, I hesitate to give you any reading to do, but there's been a lovely debut novel called The Wardrobe Department by Elaine Garvey. I think it's published by Canongate, which you might enjoy.
Okay, I will.
Because it's very funny. And it's about working sort of behind the scenes in a West End show with all these actors that always need things mending and cleaning and
they leave,
replacing.
Or they leave their costume on stage, which is the other thing that I've had.
Right.
I've had the actors, you know, opening nights, and they say, I can't find my costume. Go, where is it? And it was on stage. I remember crawling across the stage to go and retrieve something for them. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I mean, you enjoyed your theatrical career, though. I mean,
well, I think that's what taught me to be a writer. If we really ask, you know, where do you learn to be a writer? I learned to be a writer through theatre, because there's nothing better, and it's what writers never see. But you watch a play and you watch the audience and you see them going, and you think, oh, you've lost it. Now, I really do believe you've got to actually keep it going, and you've always got to have the gun somewhere up your sleeve to make it go dulum, dulum, dulum. And there's not, you know, in this attention deficit age we're living in, people do need to go fast. I think slow is very hard for a lot of books. If you go too slow, you lose them. And I used to watch that in theatre all the time. And I think, and that's why I'm so passionate about audio and authors actually going and listening to their books being read, because there's nothing better than hearing you've used duplicity twice, 3 times, 5 times, 7 times, which you don't realize when you've read it. You've done it so much. And I think I learn more from listening again to my audio for the next book, what I want to do. Yeah. As I learned in theatre.
Give us a little hint of what the next book will be.
Oh, well,
what's the time setting, the era?
Yes, it's 1920.
Gosh.
And it's a supernatural story. It's a ghost story. Yes. And it's called A Winter's Carol.
Nice. And also fabulous clothes.
Fabulous.
1920s clothing is,
fabulous clothes, big house,
flappers, yes,
big house,
wonderful.
Yeah.
How far along are you?
I'm stuck.
It's time to.
I'm undoing the knitting as well.
Well, maybe you're not at the dinner stage yet, but there's always dinner to have.
The dinner stage, we're still on the floor. It's like, I've unknitted it twice, and then I've got a friend reading it, and she went, Sal, you've got a lot of horror and a lot of confusion happening all too quickly. Like, oh no, more unknitting on the floor. Anyway, God.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we will wait with excitement to hear how that. I mean, how long? It doesn't seem too long since Weather Woman. Like, is sort of 2-3 years. Is that a sort of time frame for writing a book?
Books really are a bugger, to put it politely, because they do take time, and they really take a lot out of your soul to write it well, I think. So yeah, they do. I mean, Carol, I've got to get in by February. I hope I manage it, But the other book I've got to write after that is, for Head of Zeus, that I've got a little longer on to sort of. But I feel a bit naughty about this, because this book is for HarperCollins, and I'm afraid I had the contract after Snow Song, and I have just had so much on my plate, I haven't got to it. So this is a sort of like, oh, whoops. I should have done this book before, a long time ago.
You owe them a book.
Yeah.
Contractually, right? Well, it's good to be busy. It's good to be busy.
Oh no, I thank whoever is up there in the world for giving me work. I thank, and may it long continue. I really want to. There's so much I want to write.
Well, there's no. I'm sure there's no shortage of stories and characters, and it's all whirling around. Sally Gardner, thank you very much for joining me in the book bag. I hope to see you in real life.
I hope so. I just love you, Suzi. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
And thank you very much for watching. Oh, something strange has happened. Oh, here I am. I'm back. We have been talking about this wonderful novel, The Bridestone. That is the latest, and a few other things by Sally, including I, Coriander, and the absolutely truly amazing Tinder, if you ever find a copy of that. Join me next time. I shall find somebody else exciting to talk to, but going for dinner with characters, I think that is absolutely brilliant. That's one of the best tips I've heard. So thank you for joining me. Catch you next time. Goodbye.